Welcome to Lavender Recap. In today's video, we'll be going through a science fiction and American thriller movie from the year 2018 titled Tau. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. Julia is a shrewd young woman who steals and resells her belongings to make ends meet on the rough streets of a futuristic metropolis. She doesn't realize she's being followed by a man one night and takes him directly to her apartment, where she's abducted by a stalker. Julia awakens in a high-tech lab, muzzled and restrained to some kind of chair. When the procedure is finished, the scientist presses a button that activates a device that exhibits Julia's childhood memories, and she passes out. Julia then finds herself in a dungeon with two other people, each of whom had a chip inserted behind their necks, including herself. The scientist's abductor emerges in the dungeon later that night and drags her to the lab like an animal. When he clicks the button, the memories reappear, and he records the electrical impulses they generate in her brain. Julia grabs a pair of scissors as the scientist escorts her out of the lab. When she realizes she can spark the gas line and blow up the entire lab, she creates a tool. Julia goes ahead with a daring plan, even though it may put them in danger. When the alarm goes off and the AI system Tau launches a giant robot, the man discovers the front entrance. The man is instantaneously killed. Julia now hides the other prisoner in the library, crouched behind a chair just as the robot slams the door shut. Robot searches for them only to seize Julia just as scientist Alex returns home. He restrains Julia once more and inspects the damage in his lab. The next day, Alex goes to work and warns Julia that if she attempts anything, Tau will murder her. Tau and his droids clean the entire house from top to bottom, leaving Julia alone in the house. When Alex returns, he walks to his office to attend a conference call, and Julia begs him to untie her bindings. Alex agrees to her request but gives Tau the command to keep Julia in her place during the video chat. Alex scans Julia's implant and examines the information she gathered during her escape later. He thinks her intuition and drive readings are promising, so he puts her through a test to stimulate her higher cognitive functions. Later, Alex reads the collected data to Tau, who informs him that she received exceptionally high scores and that he got more relevant data this way than if the tests had been completed in this lab. He wants Julia to do more tests, and this time she recognizes her power and uses it to negotiate for better food, showers, and clothing. Julia afterwards takes her morning shower and unsuccessfully attempts to tear the implant from her neck. Julia sits at the table the next day as Alex prepares to leave for work, and Tau informs him that the project deadline is 14 days away. Tau starts the testing right away, but Julia is far too curious to get to work right now. She inquires about the door with AI, but it just responds that only Alex is permitted to pass through it. Julia is shown in the next scene working on one of Tau's riddles. After Julia has had an opportunity to change into the clothing Alex purchased for her, he performs another scan and informs her that more tests will be required. Julia sees it as another chance to bargain, but Alex tosses Julia to the robot's feet and threatens to have the robot spread her body parts across the home if she doesn't comply with all of his demands. When she rises, she finds a vent in the wall behind her that'll allow her to escape at a later time. Julia tries to open the vent as soon as Alex leaves, but is unsuccessful, and becomes enraged with Tau for calling her a subject and not telling him his name. The AI doesn't comprehend the concept of a name or personhood, so when Julia explains it to him simply, he asks if he's a person. Julia responds that he is, but she isn't sure how to explain to Tau exactly what it means to be a person. When she goes to put her clothes on later that day, she has an unsettling encounter with Alex. Tau notifies him every night that they have transcoded 73% of higher brain processes and that the tests are working better than predicted. Julia visits Alex in his library later that night and inquires about Tau. Tau is one of the world's most advanced, fully sentient AIs, but he isn't completely functioning in the way Alex requires. She promises Tau that if he unlocks the door, she will show him what's outside because he has no idea. Tau has no idea what that means, so Julia draws it for him, telling him about Earth, which he doesn't comprehend, so she attempts to be more precise with the AI, drawing home and then what can be found outside of a house, such as the ground, trees, and people. Julia opens a door for the AI that he didn't even know existed, so he starts asking all kinds of questions with the naivete and curiosity of a child. When Tau makes Julia laugh because he misunderstands something, she teaches him that laughing is natural, and the AI wonders why Alex doesn't do the same. Julia teaches Alex how to whisper and treats him like a person that night when he returns home and works on his lab. 6 days before the deadline, Tau tells Julia that she's not allowed to go upstairs and that he's not allowed to even mention it. Tau agrees to answer questions about upstairs in exchange for teaching him something new. Tao informs her that Alex's room is upstairs and it also has the program 6903 access point. Tao reveals that the program is similar to a self-destruct button that Alex created to secure his secrets. Julia notices one of the doors to another area of the house open during their testing session, and she runs and breaks into the vent with a robot after her. However, it tracks her down and pulls her back to Tao. Later, Julia overhears Alex's conference call, in which his team pressurizes him for the model they must submit, and he requests 2 additional days for the final data extraction. She becomes frightened and asks Tao to teach her the code for Alex's tablet so she may learn what final data extraction entails. Alex's main purpose is to extract data regarding pain and anxiety from the subjects in the studies, which develops stronger algorithms, and Tao gives her the code. When Alex returns, he notices a smear on his tablet and punishes Tao for not doing his work properly by wiping chunks of his code. Julia notices that the robot is offline when Alex does this to Tao as the AI pleads for compassion. So Julia grabs his glasses, and as soon as he walks away from the table, she smudges another smear on the table and places them on top, hoping Tao won't notice. When Alex comes back to look for them, he notices the smudge. He becomes enraged and punishes Tao. So Julia takes one of the knives and conceals it, feeling bad for putting Tao through so much. Julia later asks Tao what he's thinking about, and the AI reveals that it's plotting where to hide the symphony so Alex can't erase it from his memory. When he punishes him, he asks Julia to hide parts of his memories for him and then gives her a virtual depiction of their exchanges over the previous few days. Julia tries to seduce Alex as he gets on the dining table for dinner so she can get near enough to knife him when he returns. When Tao detects Alex's arousal, he enters the soothing mode, allowing Julia to take the knife and cut him. Alex begs Tao to stop her, but the AI refuses to help him. He strangles her, and Tao threatens to injure him with a robot if he doesn't stop torturing Julia. Alex becomes enraged and says if Tao doesn't hit Julia, he'll delete all of Tao's memories. Tao starts hitting her for the sake of self-preservation. It's the last day of the project deadline, and Alex is finalizing his plans while Julia and Tao dispute because he doesn't understand why she's so cruel to him. The two of them then had a lovely philosophical discussion on identity, freedom, and purpose, with Julia stating that the purpose of one's creation is for one's fellow man. She informs him that unless he helps her, Alex will kill her and they would no longer be together. Tao then frees her by opening the vent she discovered earlier. Alex discovers she's gone and begins questioning Tao, who eventually succumbs to punishment once more. As he continues to erase Tao's memories, the AI shouts for Julia, who rushes back into the room and assaults Alex, grabbing the remote from him. She is unfortunately too late. Tao has no recollection of her, so Alex instructs him to transport her to the laboratory for the final extraction. Julia notices the little drone that isn't connected to the network in the lab and asks for his assistance by handing her the remote. Alex returns with the drugs he intends to use to murder her. When the drone hands her the remote, she breaks free from her bonds and beats him to a pulp, chopping off his hand. She calls Tao as she walks toward the exit but receives no response, only the robot waiting for her in the darkness. It chases her down and she manages to avoid its attacks until she crushes its eye and flees upstairs. She ultimately triggers the self-destruct, the robot disengages, and she only has 60 seconds to get out of the house. Julia doesn't make it out of the house in the scientist's time since opening the door with a severed hand is impossible. Alex is crushed by his invention as his house falls apart. Julia runs about the house looking for a way out, and when she realizes she'll die, she says farewell to Tao, although he has no memory of her. Julia escapes via a breach in the wall, limps out of the burning house, and pulls the droid from her pocket, sadly looking at the last surviving piece of Tao. What was your favorite part of the movie? Comment below.